The Red River Farm Network is celebrating the role of women in agriculture. Agricult-HER is made possible by the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council, Minnesota Corn Growers Association, North Dakota Corn Council, Van On and Company, and Ag Country Farm Credit Services. And our guest today, South Dakota's State Veterinarian, Dr. Beth Thompson. Dr. Thompson, thanks so much for taking time to talk with us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, good morning, Jamie.
Well, it's great to be able to talk with you. And first of all, for people that don't know, um, originally you were a Minnesota State Veterinarian. You recently came back to South Dakota, and that's home for you, right?
It is. I grew up farm between Groton and Columbia in Brown County, South Dakota. So yes, it's good. It's good to be home. It's good to be back in South Dakota.
Well, talk to me about your career path because it's interesting. You weren't always a veterinarian; that you kind of led yourself up to that. So, kind of tell your story if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, no, sure thing. So I did. I grew up on a farm. Decided sometime during high school or thereafter that I was going to pursue law. So ended up going to law school over in Minnesota, graduating and finding my first positions as a lawyer over in Minnesota. Sometime though in my 30s, not giving away how old I am now, but midlife crisis, and I don't know, I wouldn't say it was a whim, but a suggestion of a couple of people that were close to me, went back to veterinary school. So University of Minnesota College of Veterinary Medicine graduate, spent some time out working as a swine veterinarian, but then was pulled back into regulatory veterinary medicine. Based on my background, that seems to be a good use of those degrees. So yes, went back and worked for the board over in Minnesota until Dr. Odekoven vacated the position here, and found myself back in South Dakota.
Well, and back at home, which has got to be a great feeling for you. And you know, I know this is a loaded question, and we ask this a lot of people because, and especially in your line of work, there's no such thing as a typical day. So, what does a day look like for you as far as, things that you encounter? If you could maybe give us a kind of a rundown of different things that you're doing every day.
Sure thing. So just by way of explanation, the Animal Industry Board here in South Dakota is multifaceted. So about half of our agency inspects small and very small meat plants, lockers here in the state. And then the other half of the agency is animal health. So again, yeah, to your point, on any given day, so this morning we were already talking about some issues that we're facing on the animal health side. We've got highly pathogenic avian influenza, concerns about what's going on in dairy, in cats, some spillover most recently into some other mammals here in the United States. But also, I've had some discussions this morning on a couple of things that are coming up with our meat inspection program. So working together with other state agencies, working together with USDA and some of the federal agencies, and then, of course, working together with farmers and ranchers and veterinarians. The legislature is currently in session, so, yeah, take your pick. There is not, absolutely, there is not a typical day when you are a state veterinarian and or work for this agency.
Well, and you mentioned it with, highly pathogenic avian influenza, different foreign animal disease. You and I had a chance to talk, was it last month, I think, at the South Dakota Pork Congress, and you were in front of a bunch of producers talking about how, the state is prepared for this and how you've been preparing for this. And, and basically your job that day, I think, more than anything, was to reassure those producers in the crowd that there's a plan in place and, as awful as all this can be, you're trying to be as ready as possible, as prepared as possible.
Yeah, and to the previous question, it's always a good day for me when I have a chance to get out and talk to farmers and ranchers, veterinarians, because that's really where the boots on the ground happen. And it is the responsibility of this agency, at least here in South Dakota, to be prepared for highly pathogenic avian influenza, African swine fever, foot and mouth disease. Any of those to have those plans in place and to have those relationships built. So yeah, that's really the culmination of the work that we do here, is when we get out and talk to farmers and ranchers about what is actually needed and what's already in place for foreign animal disease response.
I think you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but the question then would be, what is the best part of your job or the thing you enjoy most? Is that getting out in front of producers?
It is. I always learn something when I'm talking to farmers and ranchers and veterinarians, whether it be what they're seeing this season out with the cattle or the hogs or the poultry that they're raising, or what they're experiencing with the markets, what they're seeing in their communities. All of that is really important to what happens here at this state agency.
So talk about accomplishments or things that you feel like, big milestones in your career. You could name a few of them if you want, but just different things that you feel you feel highly accomplished about as you've gone along in your career.
Yeah, a couple of them come to mind. I have worked closely with the American Veterinary Medical Association and the United States Animal Health Association, a couple of national groups. I'm currently in leadership roles in those groups, and I really enjoy working with those folks. Different things that come up that face either veterinarians or USAHA, is actually includes livestock producer groups and USDA at a very high level. Here in a few weeks, we're getting together in DC to talk about some of those animal health issues. I'm also currently the president of the National Assembly, which is all state animal health officials. And that group, I call many of those folks my friends. I've been through a lot with some of them and appreciate the background and wisdom and insight that those people have too. And to be president of that organization for a couple of years it's been a little bit extra work, but I'm so honored to work with that group too.
If you could talk about technology, because we always talk about how technology is changing rapidly in the ag business, and how AI and everything is getting involved, and that. Talk about technology in your line of work, because it's very important for you as well, whether we're talking about keeping track of things, labeling things, all those sorts of things. But technology, how it's changed over time since you began.
Yeah, so going back to my time in Minnesota, working for the board over there, how quickly we moved from our field vets and animal health staff having to go home at night and pick up the phone from the wall to call into the office to do something, or sending things off, paper copies of things to the office, to now we have most of our information comes in electronically. And I think our farmers and ranchers are seeing that too. It's just a not so gradual move to everything being electronic. We still have some papers. We still have things that need to go to USDA, other agencies that is still paper. But yeah, the move, the shift from, again, those phones on the wall to what we have in our hands now, big change for all of us. And keeping up with that technology is a full-time task for state agencies.
So what's something that maybe nobody knows or people don't generally know about the career that you're in? Like certain things that maybe you do that people wouldn't expect, or something like that?
It's a great question. I was back in Groton just this weekend, and somebody asked that question. Well, how many animals do you see? Does it include dogs and cats? And that truly isn't the job, at least for the state veterinarian and most of the staff here in Pierre. And we do have veterinarians and other staff, meat inspection staff, out across the state. And they absolutely, whether it's TB testing or helping with high pass or anything like that. But here in the office, it's organizing what we do in cooperation with the federal government, and it's also making sure that across the state that those programs are running appropriately. So yeah, I I wish I did. I more hands-on. I would love to get out into a hog barn and do some bleeding right now, but that is absolutely not what I do on a day-to-day basis.
So, role models for you. Who have been some people that you consider role models for you in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. If I talk about agriculture and livestock, it would be my dad and some of my family. My dad was a true product of the 1930s. When I was growing up, we had both crops and livestock. And my dad always said that sometimes the crops do really well, sometimes the livestock are doing better. So you need both. You need to diversify. He also taught me about animal handling. He also taught me about the business of agriculture. So truly, and that has continued in my family. My brother and my nephew are still there, but yeah, definitely my dad.
Anything stick out as most memorable for you in this career that you've done? Like anything that really sticks out that said, "Boy, that's a really memorable moment." I mean, obviously, we went through a pandemic, so that's something that maybe people don't want to remember, but it's one of those pinnacle moments. Anything else stick out for you?
I think ongoing, um, what is a concern of mine and something that I try to work on a day-to-day basis. I think, and we actually know more and more citizens of the United States are getting further and further from agriculture. And so whether it's talking to friends, whether it's talking to people that I meet in other situations outside of my job, I think it's really important that we continue to talk about how important agriculture is for all of us. A safe food supply, all of the families that either are still farming or the industries that we have around farming. I think that looking back on my life, we need to continue to talk about that because one of the important lessons I've learned is that we are, as a society, moving further and further away from agriculture. And there are just some really, really great stories to be told. So, yeah, some of those folks that I've met through the years in agriculture, that's something that I go back to when I'm telling some of those stories.
Dr. Thompson, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day for us. We really appreciate that.
Yep. And thank you and all that you do.
Thank you. Red River Farm Network celebrating the role of women in agriculture. Agricult-HER, made possible by the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council, Minnesota Corn Growers Association, North Dakota Corn Council, Van On and Company, and Ag Country Farm Credit Services.